Hello, everyone. I'm gonna sort of go backwards through the news, start from a minor item, and then work my way to the major ones. So, there is a summit in The Hague coming up to talk about the situation in Europe, and obviously, the war in Ukraine will be one of the major topics of discussion, which it should be. It affects everybody. It is one of the biggest armed conflicts we've seen since World War II, the biggest one in Europe we have seen since World War II. And while NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says that he would like to see peace in Ukraine, whether it's through a ceasefire or formal agreement, it must be durable and sustainable. My question is, considering who we are working with, meaning Russia, how are we going to do this? How are we going to achieve this durable, sustainable peace? Taking all of the data we have about all of the conflicts involving Russia in the past, what are we going to do? The last but not the least point about issues with Russia being that Russia lies. So, do you remember back in April, almost a full month ago, Russia had declared that they have completely retaken control of the Kursk region. Just a reminder, Ukrainian troops came into the Kursk region back in August of 2024 and stayed there for quite some time, which was a huge surprise to Kremlin and to the people living in the Kursk region, because suddenly the war was on their doorstep, and not at all theoretically. It was no longer something they saw on the news. It was no longer something they read about. It was there. And at the time, the question was why? Why did Ukrainians do it? Well, yes, one of the points was to see if they could hold on to a portion of Russian territory to use it as a bargaining chip. There were other effects that were just as important. One of them was the psychological effect of bringing the war to the Russians and letting them see what it's like when it comes to your home. As the result, a bunch of people had to evacuate out of the Kursk region. Of course, there were also military bases, storages, staging grounds, etc. And that had sustained a lot of damage in that area, just as they did in a bunch of other border regions. So, yes, it's true that Ukrainian forces no longer hold the same territory in the Kursk region as they did in the beginning. However, Russia's statement that they have freed Kursk region from Ukrainians is premature because the fighting still continues. And that is just another example how one should take anything coming out of Russia with not just a grain of salt, but I would say at least a healthy tablespoon of salt. This is making rounds. There was a Russian semiconductor plant that makes parts for missiles and military jets that has been hit by Ukrainian drones. This is the Volkhov semiconductor plant. It's located in the Ural region, and definitely a valid military target, considering it is engaged in producing essential parts for Sukhoi warplanes, it's the Su warplanes, as well as Iskander and Kinjal missiles that have been widely used in the invasion of Ukraine. So for all of Russia's statements that they have downed Ukrainian drones, remember what I told you. it only takes a couple. They can down 150 of them, but if two or three reach their target and then the burning pieces of the other ones fall down on the target, it still counts. It's still going to cause damage. It's still going to put the place out of commission for a while. So the regional director, who of course is Russian, said that there were no damage or casualties, but then said that there was some buildings and some of the factory structures that were damaged. I think we are better served to watch the satellite imagery shared by Ukrainians, which probably will be also confirmed by the European and American satellite images, showing the footage of the burning and damaged facility. And then for the big story. So this is making rounds across the news sources, while everybody's still saying something, peaceful resolution, something. Russia unleashes another major aerial attack on Kyiv, Ukraine's capital. And basically, Zelensky pointed out what's already obvious, but, he's not wrong in reiterating it, saying that, you see what these guys are doing? Does this look to you that, like, they want peace or ceasefire or whatever? So, he's calling them out on their bullshit. Multiple articles are narrating the story of a 64-year-old local resident who lives on the outskirts of Kyiv, just in the suburbs of Kyiv, talking about how the attack had frightened her 3-year-old granddaughter. And she is not alone in this. We have an entire generation of Ukrainian children who don't even know what it's like to live without air raids, who don't know what it's like to go to school not underground. Zelensky says that additional sanctions that target key sectors of Russian economy are the solution, but I think he knows, and the rest of us know, that it's not just that. I mean, because sanctions have been applied to the crucial areas of Russian industry, and so far they have no effect on the true culprit of this whole situation, which is Putin. While, yes, sanctions are all well and good, I think, once again, we go back to the kind of person for whom nothing matters until there are specific and very painful, very negative consequences to himself personally. And that might have an effect. On a positive side, the prisoner swap continues. Remember, during the last talks in Turkey, they agreed to 1,000 prisoner swaps, so 1,000 on each side. The first, just over 300, came in just today, which is huge. But again, some people are calling it a rare gesture of goodwill on Russia's part. I mentioned this yesterday. The reason Russians are agreeing to this is, first of all, it's really no skin off their back. They have already beaten, tortured, and killed however many Ukrainian POWs they could. They already squeezed out whatever information they could out of them, if any. They're no use to Russians anymore, so they can afford to return them. In exchange, they get back their own people, whom they're just going to throw back into the war. So that's why the prisoner exchanges have been fairly regular and substantial. I'm going to ask my parents tomorrow whether our POW by any chance was in there, but of course they're exchanging them in the order that they were taken. So the last one, before this one, we saw the prisoners brought back from like May through July of 2023, and ours was taken in December of 2024. So it's probably going to take some time. More to come.